Guys, welcome back to the Hushlife podcast. This is a podcast format is what I should say, but we've had this idea to dive into some different hunts that we've done over the years, some videos we've captured, but dive in a little deeper than what the video allowed us to do. Eric and Matt shot one last week. If you guys haven't seen it, go and check it out. Eric dives into the details of his firebull hunt and talks about some things that maybe just ended up getting showed on the video. And so we have a special guest. Hold on, real quick though. This is the podcast, but we want to call it something a little different, like when we're doing it a different format. So we thought about like hunt talks. What do you think, Bray?
I like that.
I don't know. Give us some ideas down below of what we should call this little segment or this podcast. It is the podcast, but it is in a little different format. But we're just going to be talking through my beautiful daughter Brailee's first ever elk hunt. And we decided that this happened in 2019.
Yep.
So 2019, which seems like forever ago. Brailee was a little concerned before we started this that she wasn't going to remember exactly everything that went on in this hunt. But I think once we start talking through it, you'll remember. But fast forward to today, Brailee is now 18 years old. Graduated from high school, got some big plans in her future, but we're going to step back to 2019 when you were a freshman in high school. So if you can remember back then, you were in 9th grade, and you'd done some hunts before this hunt, right? Do you remember what hunts you'd been on before this?
I think just my bear hunt. Oh, wait, and my deer hunt in South Dakota?
Close, Missouri. So Brailee had a few hunts under her belt. She, I think you were only 10 years old when we took you out on the bear hunt. She killed a beautiful bear in Idaho, and then we went and did a whitetail hunt in Missouri, and then actually an antelope hunt, I believe, too.
Oh, yeah, yep.
In Wyoming. So she was a well-versed huntress out in the woods.
Had some practice.
But the one thing I will say is, so this hunt that we went on, it was a draw hunt. It was a Idaho limited entry rifle elk hunt. And I put Brailee in that year, like I do every year. I put her in for elk, deer, antelope, put myself in. Gage wasn't old enough then. But that year, Brailee drew one of the most coveted, I shouldn't say the most coveted, for me anyways, one of the most coveted elk tags in the state of Idaho. It's a tag that I'd put in for years and years and years, never drew it, would hunt an over-the-counter archery tag in the unit. It's a phenomenal unit. And I put Brailee in, and lo and behold, she drew the tag.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember, I remember when I found out that you drew the tag, we were getting ready to go on a fishing trip, me and Logan, about July sometime, 4 years ago. And right before we left to go on the fishing trip, I was just finishing up checking some emails, and the email from the Fish and Game had just came in. And, for whatever reason, Idaho has not been good to me over the years in draws. So I wasn't expecting much. Read through mine. I didn't draw anything. Read through yours, and you had drawn the elk tag. Do you remember when I told you?
I'm getting them mixed up between that and the moose tag.
Oh, well, when you draw so many wonderful tags in the state, it's hard to remember which one. That was not the moose tag. I surprised you, Was that
the one you pretend like I was in trouble?
Yeah. So, not to get ahead of ourselves, but the next year, she couldn't put in for elk, deer, or antelope, or elk. And so I think after this hunt, she's like, "Dad, I want to shoot a moose." And I was like, "Yeah, everyone wants to shoot a moose, Brailee. Like, get in line." And then she'd drawn a moose tag, and so the way I told her is I brought her into the office, and I acted like I was reading an email from her school or something, and I was trying to like,
we need to talk. I was like, great.
So, yeah. But going back to the elk, I can't remember how I told you. Maybe I just read the email to you or something. And do you remember what you thought when – because that was the first time you had ever drawn.
Yeah, I was pumped because I enjoyed going out hunting with you, so I was excited, and you were excited about the tag. I don't really understand tags and, special draws and stuff, so I was pumped because you were.
Yeah, I think I was probably over the moon when I explained to you exactly that you had drawn an elk tag first and foremost, but you'd drawn one tag that I very sought after tag in my eyes. And so I'm sure when I explained it to you, I was a little bubbly, which I am always. I've got a very bubbly personality. Anyway, so that was July. We found out she drew the tag, and I was just super excited. basically planned my fall around that hunt. But that year, she had also, she was a freshman in high school, and she had tried out for the high school cheerleading team. And as a freshman, you were the only freshman that year to make the
varsity show routine.
The varsity show routine.
Which is a big deal if you're in a high school cheer team.
Especially here in Pocatello.
Yeah, they don't joke about cheer.
So I was super pumped for her. She had made the varsity show team, whatever. Not knowing exactly what that entailed, I knew it was a serious thing, but I didn't know how serious because that was our first year into the high school program. But when you were a little kid, I remember having this thought, just thinking back to my childhood and like different stages that I had gone through, like if it was playing sports or if it was, me getting into a hobby like dirt biking, or I was big into BMXing for a while. I was big into snowboarding, played sports. But I remember thinking like, man, looking back, I was like, I should have been more committed to something like specific instead of just like, and I think it's good for kids to enjoy and experience a lot of different sports and activities. But looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have like really committed myself, found that one thing or the few things I was really passionate about and poured my heart and soul into it. And I did that a little bit in snowboarding and chased a dream of being a professional snowboarder. But I remember telling you and Gage when you guys were pretty young, you probably don't remember this, but I was like, I don't care what you decide to do in your life, if it's softball or basketball, sport, if it's dancing, cheerleading, if it's musical instruments, whatever it is, find what you're passionate about. Do a bunch of those things and find something that you really love. And when you find that thing, I want you to pour your heart and soul into it. I want you to be committed to it. And I will do everything in my power to help you along the way, if that's buying you an instrument, getting you into private lessons, whatever that might be. You remember me telling you this?
Yeah.
And so she was a dancer for a long time, did gymnastics.
Committed to cheer in 4th grade?
Yeah, which is wild. Like when I was growing up, girls just started cheering in like junior high. But here in Pocatello now, like cheerleading's a thing just like dancing is, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
So you start the progression of being a dancer, then if you choose to, you can do cheerleading classes or whatever. Yeah. And so Brailee committed to being a cheerleader, which I thought was awesome. I gave her a hard time over the years, telling her it's not a sport. But I was happy that she had found her thing and she was passionate about it. And so going into the hunt, like we knew there was going to be some complications with time and things like that, but I didn't realize how serious it was.
Yep. Never can miss a practice. Have to be on time.
Yeah, I think that first year you were a freshman, you didn't miss one practice. I mean, and that's like not just school year stuff. It started that summer.
Yeah, all year round.
Year-round cheerleading. So when the hunt finally came, I remember I was out there like the last 3 days of September because the hunt started October 1st. And so like I wanted, and we've spent a lot of time in that unit over the years. I've killed some phenomenal bulls in that unit. And for whatever reason, we didn't archery hunt it, or I didn't archery hunt it that year. I think Eric might have. And so I kind of knew some elk that were running around, some bulls, and I really wanted to be out there the 3 or 4 days before the hunt to really like do some scouting for you and hopefully have something that would get you excited to go and hunt and, pursue. And so I was out there for 3 days, and then you ended up coming out the night before the opener. Now, we talked about, like, if you can remember back to that time, and I was excited when I told you, I think maybe I explained, like, you showed you some bulls, like, this is a good bull, this is a great bull. Like, do you remember having, like, a thought or a notion in your head of something that you were looking for, like, what you would get you excited, or did you just kind of, like, go into the hunt thinking, like, you'll know when you see it?
Well, I never, like, really... all your mounts are like the head up, so I never really understood like how big the bodies were. So I was really basing it off of like the antlers. So I was like, I really want like wide, long antlers, like all the ones that you have in here. So, but I was just kind of like, there will probably be a lot to choose from, so I'll just decide which one I think is best. Because you explained the tag like it was like phenomenal, like there's so many bulls up there. So that's what I just assumed, that there'd be lots of options.
That's a good way to look at it. I never really thought about it that way. Is, when we talk about, we've had this saying in Hush, like, oh, is it big enough? It's not big enough. We always say it shouldn't come down to a score, but if like the person holding the tag, which was you, looks at an animal and you get really excited about it, like everything else should go out the window, and that's the one you should hunt because it got you excited. Even if it's not the biggest elk on the mountain or, the score is the highest. But if you see it, then, and you get excited, that's the one you should probably pursue. But I never thought about the theory of most people see mounts and they see from the front of the shoulder up. And so the antlers are definitely a concerning thing.
All the heads look the same.
Yeah. But like to actually see a full elk's body, it's probably pretty eye-opening because they are such huge creatures. And I remember you saying that a few times. I remember you saying that on different hunts, like, that one has a really big body, which is cool. I mean, should all be part of it, right?
Yeah.
So
the most important part.
You just knew, like, going into it that you wanted to shoot something similar to what I have on the wall, and didn't really, score like probably to today. You couldn't tell me like what's a high scoring bull or not.
Yeah, I didn't understand any of that, or like how there's some antlers that have like more. I just knew it by looks. So
yeah, which is good. I think that's a great theory. So going into the hunt, I was out there for the 3 days before, and then Brailee came out that night. We really I didn't have a bull that I was like, I'm going to show that one to Brailee. It was actually kind of frustrating because the one bull we did know about that I had seen while we were out there was a really nice bull. I think you would have been stoked with it. He got shot because the way it worked is in the state of Idaho, archery season goes from August 30th till September 30th. And then this hunt started October 1st. So literally September 30th is the last day of the archery hunt. And then the next morning is the opening day to the limited entry rifle hunt. Well, September 30th that year, the big bull that I had been watching that I think Eric had hunted that year got shot the night before the last day of the archery hunt. And it was my buddy's one that actually shot him in the shoulder blade. And we went and looked for him and everything that night, realized it wasn't a fatal hit. But in my head, I knew that bull wasn't going to be around. Like when those elk get shot out there, they move. They go to like their wintering ground for whatever reason. We've seen it over the years. So I didn't have, and I said it in the video, I'm like, I wish I had one tied up for you, but I don't, so we're just going to go hunt. And I knew an area that I wanted to go look at. So opening morning, we wake up fairly early, 5 o'clock, I believe.
Way too early for me.
Too early for Bray. Not much of a morning person. I mean, I think you're starting to become
I've become a morning person,
like,
yeah.
I've been, she's graduated from high school now. She has a job. You go into work at 8.
Yep.
So seeing you wake up on your own, getting to school or to work is impressive.
Yeah, I have mental alarms now. Like, my alarms don't even go off. I just wake up by myself.
Dude, that's important, especially if you're a hunter, because no one likes waking up to an alarm. You much rather have a mental clock set, and then you wake up to that. That's good. Anyway, so we wake up and kind of a Hail Mary so the scheduling worked that she had. I can't remember what day of the week. I think it was a Wednesday or a Tuesday. And so she missed school that opening morning, but she had to be at cheer practice at 4, right?
Yep.
So we knew opening morning, like, we only had a few hours. I think me and Logan had broke it down to, if we were going to kill a bull that opening morning, we had to have a bull on the ground by 11 a.m. in order to get it cut up, packed back to the truck, and then drive and have you home in time for you to get ready and be at cheerleading.
Yeah, I remember that.
So really, we're looking at maybe 4 hours at the most that we had to hunt. And it just happened to be that was the week of
Homecoming,
which,
it's a big deal.
If you're a football player or a cheerleader or student body president, I don't know, homecoming's a pretty big week. And I think I even texted your cheer coach, and I asked her, funny story, Brailee's cheer coach was my best friend's older sister growing up. I actually named Brailee after my best friend Brailee, and Braylin's older sister was her cheer coach. And I remember, so I have a relationship with Brailee's cheer coach way before she made the cheer team, but I texted her like a week before and said, hey, and they're not a big hunting family, so I didn't know if she would understand exactly what I was talking about, but I was like, hey, Brailee drew a really phenomenal elk tag. I know she can't miss a bunch of time, but like, how much trouble would I be in if she might miss like 2 days. And I remember she texted back immediately and was like, big trouble, homecoming weekend, can't miss. I was like, oh, great.
I remember that.
The schedule was basically we had opening morning, and then we had to have her back, and there's all these weird homecoming shenanigans. So Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday was the game.
Yeah. Yep.
So we had opening morning for a few hours, then she had to be back home for 3 days. And then it just happened that we were going to have like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday or something.
I think she was letting me miss Monday and Tuesday to hunt.
Or
after homecoming week.
So after homecoming, she finally agreed to let Brailee have a couple days off. So I didn't have a lot of high hopes for opening day, but I just like the nuance of opening day is cool. We have a saying. Do you know what that saying is about opening day?
You only get one opening day?
You only get so many in your lifetime. You don't miss them, right? Especially on limited entry tags. So I just wanted to, I knew it wasn't going to be like super not beneficial. I knew it was a long shot to get you a bull killed that first morning, but I wanted to have you out there for the experience of opening day and the excitement around that. And we actually ended up finding a really great bull.
My bull.
My bull. That's a great.
I always called it my bull as soon as I saw it, I was excited.
And so, yeah, we were out and kind of went to an area that I've seen elk in the past, and we started glassing, and sure enough, there was a bull pushing a bunch of cows down in the low country, and I showed Brailee, and do you remember what your thought was, like, looking through the vortex at that bull the first time?
I was like, that looks way bigger than the ones in my dad's office, just because, like, that is the first time I saw the body, and I wasn't even paying attention to the antlers at that point. I was like, that body's huge, like, it's so tall, and the antlers were so wide. I was like, this is perfect.
Hey, bring that clip up, Logie. So beforehand, Logie's behind the camera right now. He's running the video. He's running the camera, running the audio. I was like, it would be cool to like be able to scroll through the video while we talk about it. And Logan's like, yeah, you know, like Joe Rogan, like when he's like, hey, Jamie, bring up that clip. So Logie wanted me to do that, but not call him Jamie, call him Logie. So Logie, bring up that clip. You're going the wrong direction, big dog. Oh. So this is opening morning within like the first probably this is UFC. So for like first 20 minutes of the hunt, we have found this bull, and I showed it to Brailee, and as you can see, it's a beautiful bull. It's, I mean, big antlers. If you want to talk about a score, I was saying like 350. But Brailee saw the body. And, I mean, you had seen elk in the past.
Not really, though. Like, maybe at Bear World.
Well, like Yellowstone.
Yeah.
I'm sure I pointed out to you on the highway driving camping or somewhere, but like probably first time really paying attention to.
Well, like with binoculars on it, like it looks so much bigger when you're close.
So she's hunted deer and bear and stuff, antelope before, but like first time like really paying attention to an elk. Yeah. And again, like she said, she's seen a lot of elk mounts in my office or at Sportsman's Warehouse, and it's always just like from the shoulder up. Basically, their first time really like studying the size of an elk. And this is probably we were a ways away, probably 1,500 to 2,000 yards away. And we see this bull. And he was pushing his cows, and I kind of knew the direction they were headed. Well, I knew the direction they were headed, but I knew like the area they were going. I've been into these group of trees that I knew he was going to push his cows to. Because it's only like really group of trees within 5 miles. So I knew they were headed to this area that I'd spend a little time in. And so, as a father and as just somebody that has a lot of experience hunting and then taking either your child, another youth, or even somebody new to hunting out, in my eyes anyways, I'm always looking for like, how can I give them the best experience possible, right? So like I want you to be successful in harvesting an elk, but I want you to do it in a way that like hopefully teaches you something. And I've said this for a long time. Like some of like the life lessons I've learned in my life that have really helped me are lessons I've learned out on the mountain, either hunting or fishing or hiking. Like there's been a lot of experiences in my life that I've learned something from that will help me with the rest of my life, like raising kids or being a husband or being a good human being. Like I've learned that. So in my eyes, I'm always trying to find that experience or hope for that experience to show you, to maybe help you like one day you can look back at that hunt and be like, oh man, I remember, doing this for this purpose. And now I can really relate that to this part of my life. And so when we saw this elk, I knew there was a road that would get us like literally 100 yards in front of this elk before he ever made it to that road. But I remember thinking, like, that's not how I want Brailee to kill an elk, which is 100% legal. If it's public, you can get off the roadway. If it's not maintained, you can get off the roadway, shoot the elk. It'd been fine, been an easy pack out. But I remember thinking, like, I don't want this hunt to go down that way. So I remember, like, purposely, like, waiting for the elk to get across the road, get into the trees where we could actually go and hunt them. And so, after we saw that elk, and I was like, I know where they're going. Do you remember, like, thinking, oh, I'm going to go kill this elk right now?
I remember, like, now that I'm older, like, I understand your lessons a lot more. Like, I don't want to shoot an animal on opening day just because, like, that's the first day. That's when you should find your animal. But then, like, it's not always about shooting the animal. It's about the experience leading up to it, like what you were saying. And so killing it on opening day, like, you don't get to camp with everybody. You don't get to, like, build up that excitement over the nights of, like, oh, I found this elk, I want to go hunt it. But I remember then I was pissed. I was like, I just want to go shoot this, like, right now. Like, that's my elk, and it's just walking away.
All those things, just throw them out the window. I have a target. Let's go kill this thing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that makes complete sense in my head. You hope for that experience. You hope for, all the excitement in between. I mean, ideally in my head, the perfect hunt is where you can go out, experience the tag for what it is. If it's an over-the-counter tag, if it's a draw tag, like, you can experience that for what it is, get to know the country, make a ton of memories on that hunt, work hard. I always say that, like, work hard, and then eventually, like, find success after you've experienced all those things. But at the same time, when you see an animal and you're like, that can kind of go out the window and say, I want to kill that animal because it's a big animal. It's going to provide a ton of good food, and, like, I'm excited, like, right now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I have strep throat. Like, I don't want to hike. Like, it's just right there. Like, I can just go shoot it. And you're just letting it walk into the trees.
So we let the elk go into the trees, and then we went and hunted him pretty hard. And my theory was, there was a group of trees that the elk were headed to, and there was maybe 15 acres of wooded area. And then it was all just sage and, like, grassland around it. So I knew they were going to these trees. And there's, like, on the one side of the group of trees where they were entering, I knew there was a dirt road that ran perpendicular with the group of trees. So I knew, like, we could just go and cut the elk tracks. There were a lot of cattle in there, but hopefully by now we can distinguish cattle tracks and elk tracks. So I thought, well, we'll just go walk down this road until we hit the tracks, and then we'll slowly, like, go still hunt the trees. And we got in there and we hunted that whole group of trees. I don't know where those elk ended up going. We ended up jumping them actually on our way back. We cut the track again coming back.
I remember smelling them because it's rutting season, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I could remember smelling them. They're so musky.
Very musky. I mean, cattle and elk smell similar, but if you've been around elk enough, there's a distinct difference between cattle and elk, obviously. And we had hit the tracks going in, obviously elk track, but they were kind of like working down the road, and then we, like, lost them. Anyway, on our way back, we cut them. I think this is right after we had jumped them, maybe. And, we'd smelled them, cut the track, and then we heard them running, busting out of there. And I still don't know to this day where they went, but this was basically at 11 a.m., our last, I knew if we killed an elk after this, we weren't going to be able to get it all taken care of and you back to cheerleading practice. So we kind of called it a day there, and which I thought it was a super successful morning. I got you out in the woods on opening day, and we got on a beautiful bull, and it could have gone 50-50. We could have killed that bull just as easy as we didn't kill that bull.
And we got an awesome picture on that trail.
Yeah, we got an awesome picture, me and Bray. But this is kind of me explaining, like, hey, opening morning's come and gone, and now we got to go back, and Brailee's got to get back to business for a few days. And then we'll get after it. I remember just being very excited, knowing that we had to go home for 3 days. But then, being able to come back and have a solid 4 days. I think 4 days is, like, my number of time I'm looking for to be in the woods, to really, like, get something done. one day's tough, 2 days is hard, 3 days, maybe 4 days though. Like, you should have enough knowledge about the area, even if it's a new area, to get in there, hopefully find the animal you want to kill, and then have enough time to pursue that animal. And so I was excited about the next adventure out there. And so Friday came. She had the homecoming game. Did you guys win or lose?
Probably win. We always play a bad team so we can win.
That's usually how it's set up. Play a team you can beat.
Yep.
So they had homecoming, and then the plan was Saturday morning we were going to wake up early and cruise out to the area and go hunt this bull. And what Brailee alluded to earlier, as soon as she saw the bull, it became
my bull.
My bull. She kept referring to it as, that's my bull.
Yep.
It was a bull that got her excited enough that she was ready to put her tag on that thing. And so it was nice. So we came home for a few days. We got a chance to go shoot the rifle to make sure it was dialed. One of the things I've done with Brailee very well, and it's a very big tip for anybody at home looking to get their kid into hunting or getting anybody into hunting that hasn't been in the woods a lot with a rifle, is target acquisition. It's one of the hardest things to do with a new hunter. Being a youth, being your dad if he hasn't hunted a lot. Being able to see the animal is one thing, but being able to see the animal through your rifle scope is a whole different thing. And ever since she was very young, which I'll tell this story real quick, when she was 3 years old, Brailee was my first child. When she turned 3, I had the bright idea to go and buy her a 22 for her birthday. And so I remember going home very excited after I went to the local Ace Hardware and picked her up a little, I think it's called a Cricket 22. It's about this big, that long, and it's pink. Brailee's mom, my wife, was not very stoked on the idea of buying her a 22, but I did. And we started shooting it pretty young. I remember one of the first videos I made on Hush is called Shooting Guns with Kids. And it was you and Gage when you were probably 5 or 6, and Gage was probably 2 or 3, shooting that gun. But one of the things I've done very well with Brailee is I've always allowed her to acquire the target for herself. It's very easy, especially when you're at a range, to put a gun on a rest and then line it up on the target for the person and be like, all right, look through there, you got it, shoot the target, see how well you shoot. I've always made her do that, or allowed her to do it, is the way I should say it. And so she's always been really good at that. Even the bear she killed was a kind of a rush situation. She found the bear. Her deer, she saw it first, acquired the deer through her target. So she's always been very good at that way. But, range practice is a big thing. But that's a big tip I'd give anybody at home trying to get kids involved in the hunting, is allow them to acquire the target themselves, because later on you're going to be regretting it if you don't, especially in those hunting situations. Anyways, plan was to go back out Saturday morning, leave here at 5. I wish I still had that text thread. 5, I told Brailee, I'm going to wake you up at 5 or 4:30. We're going to get on the road at 5. And so BMAC had gone out to the area the night before, and I sent him a pin on OnX. I said, this is where the elk's coming out. This is where he's kind of living. Go and see if you can find him Friday night, and then we'll be out there Saturday morning. I can't remember. I don't think he saw that bull Friday night, but Saturday morning came, and I have this 6 texts in a row from Logan. Hey, man, in your driveway. Hey, man, in your truck. Truck's going. Where you at? Hey, dude.
Didn't I come and wake you up?
No. And this is a funny callback to you talking about mental alarm clocks. You didn't have a mental alarm clock back then.
Nope.
Because I told you I was going to wake you up at 4:30. I think I rolled into your room at 5:30. I was like, get up, we're late. Hurry, get dressed. I slept in. I'm not the sleeping guy. I'm usually the first guy up, getting the show going. I slept in an hour. Woke up to text from Logan, text from Brian. I remember throwing you in the back of the truck. I don't even think you were completely dressed. You had your boots off, your pants off. And it's an hour drive out there, and it was getting light at just after 6. So we were pushing the speed limit, not breaking the law, but pushing the speed limit. I remember Brian, we were 30 minutes out, and Brian's like, dude, it's light. Where are you at? And I'm like, tie that thing up. We're on our way. So what happened?
No mental alarm clocks, and we slept in, but we saw the elk. We were ready to go. It was light outside. I was so pumped. I was like, there it is. Was it still in that same field? Yeah,
so they were hitting a alfalfa field or a hay field at night, and then they were coming out of the hay field right after first light, And Brian was like, got the bull. He's in the field. He's like getting ready to push his cows out of the field. And we were still like 20 minutes away. And we got there just in time to see the elk coming out of the field. And our plan was to circle up above him. And then I knew we could make a mad dash on our feet and get out in front of him. And I was still like pretty confident in the fact that we were going to kill this bull. But Brian had said, I got the bull, but dude, there's other people out here hunting. And so we're like, oh no. But we got there just in time to see the elk. We got there
in time. We're driving around, like we're making a game plan. And all of a sudden, this razor just comes out of nowhere, full speed towards the elk, and just starts shooting at it out of the side-by-side and kills it. And I was so mad. I was like, that was my elk.
That was, I would say a better word instead of mad is devastated.
Yep.
And so, like, this is part of the reason why we want to do these hunt talks, is we can, like, explain things that maybe we showed a sneak peek of in the video, but really didn't dive into more of, like, the granular details of exactly what happened. But the way Brailee explained it is we get there, we see the elk coming out, and then all of a sudden there's a side-by-side, like, cruising along the side of the field. And I don't think they didn't shoot the elk like driving in the side-by-side. I think they got close enough, got out of the side-by-side, shot from the side-by-side, killed the elk, which in my head was 100% legal. I talk about that in the video, and I remember there's some of the first comments when we put the video up was like, you can't be mad at those people. Maybe they were like handicapped and they had a permit to do that, to shoot from the side-by-side or whatever. And I wasn't like being mad at that specific person. And I talked about that, like going back to like how I wanted your experience to happen. Maybe they didn't want that same experience for themselves. You know, maybe they were good with just driving on a road and killing an elk, which is legal. And I wasn't trying to be like, but I remember there's people like standing up for this fictitious person they didn't know, but they were like, you can't judge them, you don't know. I agree. Like, I wasn't trying to judge them. I think I was just allowing my frustrations to come out on camera, because not only is my daughter, 15-year-old daughter, devastated in the back of the truck, I was a little worried of this was my fault. If I wouldn't have slept in, that could have been us killing the elk, but it wasn't, and it was all on my shoulders.
But it all worked out.
But what did I tell you? As soon as that happened, and you were devastated, you were mad, and we were sitting in the back of the truck, and again, like, the two big bulls I knew that were out there, the one had been shot in the shoulder blade a few days earlier during the archery hunt. I knew he wasn't going to be around. And then the other one, we just watched get killed. So I didn't really I had some backup areas I wanted to go check out. I had some trail cameras out that I thought would produce a bull that we could go hunt. But I really didn't have anything in my back pocket to be like, okay, let's go to this next one. But I told you, come on, phrase I tell you all the time.
Everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. And I throw that phrase around a lot. And it's really easy to believe in that phrase after you can prove that things happen for a reason. But when you're going through that experience of trying to believe that's true, it's really a stupid phrase.
Yeah, I was like, whatever, Dad. My bull just got shot. It didn't only just disappear. It got shot right in front of me.
Yeah, so there's not like maybe an opportunity, like we'll find it later on a couple miles away. Like that thing is in the back of somebody's truck headed for the meat locker.
Yeah, that was devastating.
But I put on my happy, positive face, which I always have. Like I said earlier, very bubbly personality. I said, Brailee, don't worry. I said, everything happens for a reason. I think Logan made the comment, hey, we'll just go find a bigger one. I could tell you weren't having it. You were mad. And again, my bull just got killed.
Yeah, I was not happy. You're like, I wasn't judging them, but I sure was. I was like, I hate those people.
So Brailee's in the back just hating on somebody she's never met, which is fine. But I had some other areas, and I was trying to be the positive guy and be like, hey, listen, we have 4 days. We have plenty of time. We're going to go find the next one. And we drove to another spot. I called Brian. I was like, hey, bull's dead, obviously. Let's go to this spot, Glass, this other area, and try to find some elk. And we did. We went, and we found some more bulls. And I was like, sweet. Because, again, like, second day of the hunt, I'm still not wanting you to pull the trigger. So, I want you to have those experiences. I want you to have, those opportunities to learn, to be in the woods. But I also am very selfish, and I just want to spend that time with you. You were a very busy person then, like you are now. So getting you out in the woods, even for a day And now this time, 4 days, like that's heavy on me because I know that's just like our time. We get to go out and hang out, do something I love, try to, introduce you to something I love, and hopefully you learn to enjoy it and love it too. And so I'm still like mad that I slept in, mad that that bull got killed, but I was very positive because I knew that we still had, 3.5 days. We had a good group of guys, me, Logan, and Brian out there. My buddy Jared was going to come help, and I had my daughter with me. And I was just like, man, I remember thinking this too. Like, even though that happened, that sucks. Like, still, what a great opportunity we have in front of us to put this thing together, to do it together. And so we went and started glassing, and we found a bull that looked to be fairly good. And so we drove around, and we went and put a little hike together and got above him, and we actually saw 3 bulls. And this one bull walked out, and I was like, dang. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, yes, I did. I found a bull, the next bull. Like, this is a great bull. Still fantastic bull. Just watching some golf shots here. But so we go in and we get on this bull, and as you guys can see, we had one bull laying below us that was bedded. We snuck in on. We never even ended up seeing how big that bull was, but this bull walks out, and I was like, oh, sweet, another shooter. I bet Jamie would already be on the clip, dude. See, stop it. Back it up just a little bit. Anyway, any experienced elk hunter looks at that bull, even, being the tag it is, a phenomenal tag, like, that is an exceptional bull. If we want to talk about a number game, like, I'm still putting that bull like 340 to 345 in that range. He's got those big banana, like, swords kind of swoop up. I mean, I think it's a younger bull, but, dude, what a stellar bull. I would say people that elk hunt, if you were to put 100 people in this pool of experienced elk hunters, say they've hunted elk for 20 plus years, I would say less than 10% of them will kill a bull like that in their lifetime. Is that crazy to think?
Yeah.
And I remember this bull came out, and it was not a far shot, but it was a shot that we were comfortable with. Through the summer of Brailee shooting and me having her to the range, I was comfortable with her shooting out to like 300 yards. And this bull came out at like 320, and I was like, sweet, this is fine. What were you thinking?
I think I was still a little bit bitter that my elk got shot, and I looked at this and I was like, there's no way, like, we just watched this giant elk get shot. Like, there's no way this is the biggest one on the mountain, was kind of my thought process.
So in your head at the time, like, your bull, you'd saw that bull twice now, and then, you knew what he looked like in your head. And then this bull, which we saw a lot closer than we ever saw your bull at, in your head, were you thinking, like, that bull's way smaller, or just didn't get you excited, or you were just still angry, devastated?
I think it wasn't good enough for me for some reason, because like you said, only 10% would shoot that, so that's really weird to say. And also, I really wanted breakfast.
So we get Brailee on this bull. I mean, it wasn't like the bull stood around for 20 minutes. He came out, because I had to actually start cow calling, just hopefully to get the bull right in front of us to stand up so we could see what he was. And then in the meantime, this bull walked out at 320 yards or so. And he was only there for a few moments, but, it was long enough that we could have got, obviously you were set up on the gun ready to shoot. And I was like, what do you think? You're like, nope, not going to shoot him. I'm like, what? And you're like, nope, not going to shoot him. I'm like, all right, that's cool. That's good. I want you, and I always say this when I take somebody out, like, I can tell you what I think, but at the end of the day, we have this saying, like, if it gets you excited, that's what should tell us if, it's a shooter or not what I say. I can give you, like, recommendations, but end of the day, like, you should shoot something that gets you excited. And you're like, nope. And I was like, all right, cool. Let's move on.
You guys were so surprised. So I remember you guys were like, are you sure? Like, that's a good elk? I was like, no, I don't want it.
So, yeah, 320 yards looking through. I think we obviously had the spotter there maybe. I don't know. We looked at it and I was like, if that was my tag, which I'd shot probably a couple bulls in that range, close to that, I was like, it would be hard for me not to put my tag on that bull. Same scenario, same situation, knowing that I have all the time in the world. I was like, remember walking back to the truck and being like, dang, that's impressive. I would have probably thought way harder about shooting that bull than Brailee did. So we get in the truck, we're driving down to another spot, and that bull ends up running in front of us at like 50 yards.
you guys were like, it's right there, like you can shoot it right now, and I was like, nope. Because I remember me and Logan were talking about getting biscuits and gravy, and I was set on that, and I was like, I don't need to shoot this. And you were like, it will probably still be on the mountain, like, the next few days, because you, like you said, didn't want, like, you wanted to experience the next few days, too. And I was like, biscuits and gravy, I could still shoot this another day, like, sounds awesome.
So really, in your head, this is probably 10:30 in the morning. You know, we had a bunch of exciting things happen, and then you were just like, breakfast.
Yeah, sat on the biscuits and gravy.
So I'm kind of like relaying information to Brian, like, hey, we just got on another bull. Brian was kind of out looking at some other area, and he found a couple bulls. And I was like, the hunter's wanting some breakfast. Let's give the hunter what she needs. But I really, really wanted to go check this trail camera that I had set like 2 weeks earlier, and I hadn't looked at it yet. And I knew from talking to some guys that had been out there during the archery hunt that there was a bull in that area where I'd set my camera that I really thought I would have bet the farm on it. That's your phrase you love, right? If I owned a farm, I would have bet the farm on that the big bull that my buddies told me about was going to be on that trail camera. So I was like, all right, we'll go to breakfast, but on the way there, let's stop and check this camera because I really want to see how big this bull is, thinking he would be on there. And we checked the trail camera, and it was like dead zone.
Yeah, nothing was on it.
I think there was a couple cow elk on there as all. And I was like, oh, great. I was like, all right, breakfast. Let's, waffles, biscuits, gravy.
I was pumped. That was the best part. I was like, I'm so excited.
For a 15-year-old, like, biscuits and gravy goes a long ways. I could definitely make up for dad sleeping in and you're watching your elk die. Sweet, let's go get you what you need, refocus, and then we'll come back out. And on the way down, there's one spot I've glassed in the past. I just wanted to stop and glass. Because, as a father, as, somebody that does this for a living, and taking, your daughter out, your son out, maybe your dad out, you kind of have some like weight on your shoulders to really help them experience the hunt for the, and really put forth a lot of effort to hopefully bring you success. And so I was trying to, use up all the time we had. And so I was just like, I'm going to stop and glass this just for a second, just to say I've glassed it and see if there's anything out there. And we glassed for, 5 minutes at the most. I remember Brian and Logan were in Brian's truck behind us. And they didn't even get out of the truck. I think I got out, popped my Vortex over the hood of my truck, just started glassing, and immediately saw elk from like a mile away. It says in the video.
Didn't you just look over and see it out the window, and then like we turned around and went and glassed it?
No, I was glassing, and I saw it, and I was like, okay, that's something I need to go look at. So I saw this from another like half mile, 3/4 of a mile away, and I remember just jumping back in the truck and spinning around, and Brailee's like, are we not going to breakfast? I'm like, we got to go look at something. And Brian and Logan were faced towards breakfast, and I was turned around and was going the other way, and I stopped, and they're like, where are we going? I'm like, I got to go look at something real quick. I think that's all I said. And then we drove off, and I knew there was a road to get us closer, got us 2,100 yards away, and we all jumped out of the truck, and that is what we saw. And put the spotter on him, and we were like, okay, game on. This is a bull that not just is like a fantastic bull, a great bull, a bull that anybody would be happy with. This was like, what in my head, I'm like, what in the hell is that?
But you never said that. You're like, this is like seems like a good bull, like let's get on it.
I think in the video, or maybe it didn't make the video, there's a couple clips of Logan like filming me, Logan knowing, me knowing, and Brian knowing what we were looking at, but not trying to relay that to you. I remember there's a few times Logan turned the camera on me. I'm just like, what did we just find? But we didn't. I mean, I guess it's like the dude code, knowing that we had a 15-year-old girl with us, to not like get her overly excited, but just keep her calm. And it was like this thing we didn't even talk about that was just going on. Like every time you'd look through the scope, we were all like, and this is when Brailee stole my joke, and she goes, I guess we're not going to breakfast now. So we finally located the bull, a bull. Didn't know anything about this bull. Again, like my buddy had told me there was a big bull in the area. And in my head, I was thinking that was probably the bull. I'm like, yeah, the thing's big. It's giant. And so we were like, all right, hunt on. And I always say this, a hunt is made up of a bunch of steps, right? Like you have to if you want to go all the way back, you got to get a tag. If it's an over-the-counter tag, if you draw a tag, whatever, you have to obtain a tag for an area. Go to the area if you don't know it, learn the area, kind of find out where the animals are. But really, you're just like working your way through these steps to hopefully get you in a position that you finally acquire a target, something that gets you excited. And then that's when you really get to go hunt the animal. And that's my favorite part is I love finding an animal, but then I love like putting a plan together when everything else has come together and you're like, okay, target acquired, now let's go hunt the thing.
Yeah.
And so we kind of made up a real short plan of we can get up closer, we get within probably 1,000 yards of this thing, and then we're going to have to hike up onto this ridge that I found on OnX that I felt like would give us a good vantage point to see him. And I think we parked the trucks and we started walking up to get to the ridge, and we got to the ridge just before they ended up bedding down. And so we got to look at that bull, this right here. This is at like 1,000 yards away. And there, my mind starts racing. And I'm like, where did this thing come from? This thing is the biggest bull I've ever seen with my eyes. And I just remember walking myself like, we have the biggest bull I've ever seen in front of us 1,000 yards. My daughter's here on my shoulder with a tag in her pocket and a rifle on the sling. Like, holy crap, I've got to be perfect here. And I remember like trying to come up with the best game plan. And plan was to leave Brian back as the big eye to just watch. And we didn't really dive into it in the video, but my first approach was the elk was up here. We were going to come down, and it was kind of, again, like group of trees on a ridge, like a ridge system. And I knew it dropped over, but really everything around it was all like an old burn. It was all like very open grass, some scattered sage. But I knew it was going to be tough to get in close. We were 1,000 yards away, and I was like, we got to make up 700 yards somehow. And so the first approach we went at just didn't give us the right opportunity. We got to like, we couldn't see the elk at this time, but we got into like 500 yards of where I thought they might come out.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're not going to take a 500-yard shot. So we backed up out of that and circled way around the other way. And I remember looking at it with my eyes and thinking, and you know, when you look at something from 1,000 yards away, it looks very different than what it really is when you get there. And I remember seeing this little ridge and thinking that if we could get to that ridge without bumping the elk, I thought they were going to be like, they could have been anywhere over this ridge. They could have been bedded on that ridge, just out of sight. They could have been like 300 yards away. But I'm thinking like, if we could get to that ridge and the wind's right, everything's right, it might just give us a perfect opportunity to kill this bull either in his bed or kill it when he comes out. So we made this circle around, and we got to a point where I was like, all right, we just got to stop, slow down, and I just got to tell Brailee, like, remember thinking, like, and this goes a long ways with anybody in doing anything, like, you can have confidence in yourself, and that's probably the most important thing. But, man, when somebody else is in your ear telling you, like, they think you can do something, that's when things all come together and be like, okay. And that's what I remember thinking, like, okay, I know Brailee's confident. She's always made fantastic shots in the past. Like, she's very good behind the rifle at acquiring a target. I just need to tell her that. And I remember stopping and just telling you, like, hey, you're going to do this. It's going to work out. Like, we're going to get to a spot where we can kill this elk. He's going to come out. You're going to smoke this thing.
I think that's what, like, when it all started settling in that, like, oh, this is actually, like, a big elk. Like, this is a big deal, because this whole time hiking up, I was just, dang it, we're not getting breakfast, and we're hiking up. And then once you're like, you got this, like, this is going to be a good shot, like, you can do it. And I was like, oh, this is, like, actually happening. Like, this is a big deal. And that's when my heart started, like, pounding. And, like, hiking up, remember how hot it was? Like, it got so hot. And then we're, like, sitting here waiting for them to come out from bedding, and it just starts hailing. Like, we went through every single season sitting here. And my heart was just, like, pounding out of my chest.
So to step back a little bit, like, when we stopped the trucks at, like, 2,100 yards away, and we got the spotters on them, we got the phones on them where you could see, and you looked at the elk. And, you could just see its antlers, for whatever reason, that happens a lot, like, just look bright white in the junipers. Do you remember, like, looking at the elk and having an opinion, like, oh, wow, this is giant, or, like, just thinking, oh, it's a nice elk? Do you remember, or are you just thinking about biscuits and gravy?
I just remember looking at it, and I was like, that looks like a nice elk. Like, again, I didn't really know what to compare it to. Like, at that point, kind of all the elk started looking like each other. So I was like, oh, that's a nice elk. And it was super far away, so it was kind of blurry to see it a little bit. And yeah, I wanted some biscuits and gravy. So I was like, it's okay. Like, maybe I'll pass on this one too. And then you guys were like, all right, let's hike up there. I was like, okay.
But in reality, if you were to go back and you were like running the ship, would you have been, yeah, that elk's nice, but we're still going to get biscuits and gravy?
No, knowing what I know now,
I'm saying at the time though, if you were the one calling all the shots, I'm like, no, Dad, we're going to go do biscuits and gravy.
Having this mindset that I had in this video, probably.
Still a little devastated, still a little mad.
I was hungry, but then like seeing your guys' reaction, like you guys excited, made me excited because like this is my first elk hunt. Like I don't know what to expect. I don't know what elk hunting's like because every season's kind of different. So like seeing you guys excited made me excited.
So we get, like Brailee said, we started our final approach to like close the last like 50 yards to get on top of this little, and I say a ridge, but it was just a hill. And we sit down and I was like, I remember thinking, I think I said it to him, like, man, if they come out here, like we're golden. Like this is the spot. And so we're like, and it was, I mean, man, it all happened so fast, but I would assume this is probably only 1 o'clock maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't late at all.
And so, typically with elk or deer or anything like that, you see them in the morning because they're up feeding, then they go lay down, and then really they don't get up out of their beds until, an hour before dark, if that, and sometimes later. So say it was 1 o'clock, we sit down, I'm thinking, all right, we might be here for 5-6 hours before we ever see these elk again. If we do see them, like we thought we saw them bed down, but they easily could have just rolled over the next ridge and been in a whole different area, and they could have got up and fed. We never would have saw them. So we sit down, I'm like, well, it's going to be a long sit. And we kind of like, in a hurry, left the truck, not really prepared. It was a beautiful day, but right when we got there and sat down and we figured out, like got her on the rest, was like, all right, if they come out here, we're good. Dude, the worst storm I've been in a long time rolled in out of nowhere.
Just dumping rain on us. And I remember you were trying to warm me up, but I've already felt so hot because I was so nervous. So, like, I was sweating and there was rain. But it went by pretty fast.
Yeah, I think with, like, the storm rolling in, the humidity, which Idaho's not known for humidity, but during those storms, things can warm up. You did have a light jacket on, but we sat through this. I mean, it probably only lasted, 20, 30 minutes, the hailstorm.
Yeah, not long at all.
Pretty exposed. We just only have junipers, which junipers don't offer a whole lot of protection from rain and hail. But so we're just sitting in the storm, just freezing. And Logan doesn't have a coat. I don't have a coat. I think you had a light jacket on, first light jacket on. And we sit through the storm, and it got cold. Wind was blowing. It was hailing. The hail finally stopped. Then the wind came in, started blowing the storm out. And I was like, dang, I don't know how well I would perform in this situation if this elk decides to walk out right now because I'm shivering.
My hands are so cold. I remember being so scared to pull the trigger because my fingers felt like they were frozen.
So another tech tip is even if it's a beautiful day, have enough, especially if you have your 15-year-old daughter with you, have enough clothing in your backpack to, if that happens, to warm her up because we were not prepared. So we sat through the storm. And that was kind of cool. You could see the wind came in to blow the storm out. And then once the storm blew out, it just like everything settled down. It was beautiful. Not too many clouds. The sun was poking out a little bit. And we were sitting there and the cows all of a sudden, I bet this was only 3 o'clock. The cows started filing out. Pause it right there. So the cows started filing out. And I was like, I don't know what you were thinking. I was thinking, holy crap. Like, this is really happening exactly. Because in your head, you're always like, in my head anyways, I always kind of like play out scenarios that I would hope for. And so, especially hunting, you always do that. And so, this is the scenario I was playing in my head that these elk are going to get out and just feed into this one meadow that would be absolutely perfect. And it just happens to be, like, she was shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor in the brand new Weatherby Camilla. And we had set that gun up. We had zeroed that gun at 300 yards. That's why I say like 300 was the maximum. I didn't want you to hold over. We weren't set up to dial. I just knew that we needed to shoot at an elk 300 or less. And it happened that I ranged this meadow, and that elk, those 2 cows are at like 310 yards. So that scenario, I'm just like, this elk, if it does walk out, like it's going to be exactly where we wanted at 300 yards. And then we see the cows filing out, and I was like, holy crap, this is happening. And you actually spotted the bull up here to the left.
In those trees.
In the trees. I don't know if you can see it in the video. There's a couple moments you can see the antlers coming through, but this elk gets out. These elk were bedded just right up here, probably less than 200 yards from us. And we were just lucky. Like, the thermals should have been going up, but when the storm came in, it was blowing it south. So this would have been south. So the storm was blowing everything south, so our wind was perfect. If not, that storm wouldn't have rolled out like the way it did. Those elk could have got our wind very easily just with the thermals. But they didn't. And Brailee, I remember sitting there watching that cows, trying to warm Brailee up. So I remember putting Brailee in front of me because she was shivering. And at one point I was sitting behind her just like bear hugging her from the back, like trying to warm her up. And I think she made the statement that, Dad, you're shaking more than I am.
Yeah, when I was shooting it.
And Brailee says, there he is. I see the bull walking through the trees. And as you can see, my hands are shaking. It wasn't from the cold. I'm a pretty thick human being, so I have a lot of layers on my skin, inside my skin. It's called fat. So I'm a pretty warm dude, but I remember just like, this is happening, and like trying to like pull myself together to be there for you in support and not be a hindrance, which it's a toss-up if I was or not. But Brailee spotted the bull, and this is when, I wouldn't say all hell breaks loose, but I just remember trying to relay all the information that was going through my head to Brailee, and I don't know if that was the best call or not. I remember I told her to shoot it here. You know, the biggest thing with a newer hunter is just getting the perfect shot, and, you know, complete broadside shot is how you want. I felt comfortable there, I think. I told you to shoot, and I told you to come off the trigger. What was going through your head once that bull stepped out into this open? Did you ever think, like, oh, this is a done deal, like I'm going to smoke this thing?
I remember being so nervous because, like you said, it was cold outside, like, and it was just a perfect moment. I was like, okay, I cannot mess this up. And then I kept getting set on it, and it kept moving, and I was so, like, stressed about it. I was like, why can't it just not stop moving? And then it was backwards. I was like, what if I don't ever get a perfect shot? Like, what if it just keeps walking up?
It's funny how those thoughts go through your head. As a guy that's been out in the woods for a number of years and hunting, and I can't ever recall like this happening, but for whatever reason it always enters my head, is we've got this giant bull elk, and we're not crazy like off the road more than, you know, a quarter mile, and we got this probably the biggest elk in the whole unit standing out in this giant opening, and in my head I'm just thinking, someone's going to drive up this road and just get out and shoot this thing. Like, I'm waiting for a gunshot at any moment. Which is not a good thing.
That at all.
Yeah. I don't know why. I know I've talked to Eric about this before, and he has the same thoughts, but it's just like, oh, someone's going to shoot it. I got to, like, and that's not a good thing because then everything becomes rushed. But all those things are going through my head. And again, like you said, like, what if this elk just keeps walking up over the ridge and out of our lives forever? Like, it's a very good possibility.
I was also worried I was going to somehow, like, totally miss it and just shoot into the cow elk.
Why is it in human nature you just always have like the worst, like, you as positive as you can possibly be, like negative thoughts always enter our heads?
Yeah. Who knows?
It happens. It happens to me all the time. Exactly. Like, I remember thinking like, okay, like even if he turns, like, is that cow too close? You know? And one of the things, one of the few things I dislike about filming all of our adventures, and like I said, there's only like one or two things, is you always worry about how people are going to portray the video you put out. Even knowing that that's a phenomenal shot, unless you miss that bull by 15 feet, there's no way you're ever going to hit that elk. But those are still things that come into our heads as people that produce hunting videos, is like, I hope people don't portray this as it's not a good shot, because I know standing here right now or sitting here right now with my daughter, like, there's no way in the world she's ever going to hit that cow. But like those thoughts cross your mind.
Yeah, you don't want anyone to like take a good experience and make it into a bad one.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of trolls on the internet. But I definitely remember thinking that, and not thinking you would ever hit the cow unless you missed it. Then that would have been like, okay, that was meant to be. But thinking like, how are people going to, you know, whatever, it came, it went. And then I I just remember like getting you finally settled in and you were shivering. And then I just like kind of like didn't back up, obviously, but I just kind of took my hands off and just watched your posture. And I just remember thinking specifically, like, out of anybody, like, this is who I want in front of me with the gun in their hand right now, because you are so, like, calm and collective in the moment. And I remember thinking that, watching your posture and you getting, like, shouldering the gun and thinking, oh, shoot, she's got this. Even though me not thinking that maybe I wouldn't been able to make that shot. Yeah, so this bull, again, it was probably only a total of, I don't know, like 20 seconds from when the bull entered the meadow to when Brailee shot the bull, but didn't feel like it was forever.
Yeah, I felt like I was waiting for like 2 hours for it just to turn to have a good shot. And I remember right before I shot, I was like, okay, just have to like breathe all of my nervousness out, because if I'm shaking, there's no way I'm going to hit this. So I remember I just had to breathe it all out right before I pulled the trigger.
Probably the moment I kind of like stood back and just was like watching your posture, and I can remember just like it just all like calmed and came together, and you were just so cool and collective. At the moment, I remember thinking like, oh man, that elk is so dead as soon as he turns. Cool.
Real tan. Get cracking on. Oh my gosh. I told you I had 100% faith that you could kill that bull. I said you had everything inside you to do that. Even sent to a rainstorm, shivering, that didn't stop shivering. I couldn't make that shot. Smoked him 300 yards. Brailee, I am so proud of you. You have no idea. It's not just because of that elk you just killed. It's because you've always been such a determined person. As soon as you drew this tag, I knew you'd be determined to go out and find a big mature bull. And that's what it is. In your whole life, me and Mom always say, you're kind of hard-headed, but you're determined. You'll get things done.
Such a dad moment right there of you just trying to relate things to life, you know?
And I obviously had the nervous laughs because I couldn't stop laughing.
Just enjoying a moment like that. And again, like some of the best experiences or lessons I've learned in my life have come through moments like this with my dad or my friends or, you know, my family. And then later on being able to reflect back and being like, oh man, I remember that time where, you know, whatever happened and I learned from it. But like dad mode, just instantly trying to get you to understand that right now. Like you're hard-headed, but that's why, like, if you use that in your favor, like you can get things accomplished, and which you have done. You've done that very well in your life. You have always, you know, stuck to your plan and worked hard to accomplish things. And I remember thinking that when you drew the tag that you're determined, but also you're very, very competitive, which I've also learned that about Mom recently. Yep. On Mom's deer hunt last year, you know, we were quizzing her about, you know, first time she'd ever hunted, never thought she would hunt. She finally decided last year when she drew a fantastic deer tag that she wanted to try it. And we interviewed her the first day and we're like, what are you after? Like, what are you? And basically I had to dig for a while, but finally she's like, I want to shoot the biggest deer anybody's in our family's ever shot. And I was like, okay. And that's Brailee.
Yep.
But yeah, competitiveness is, again, like it's a trait that you can use for negative, but you could also use it in a very positive way to affect your life and people around you, which I hope that's one of the experiences or lessons you've learned is, you know, all these traits I feel like we're given from God or we've learned throughout our lives, but we can use them for either negative or positive ways. And I think those are some of the things that you're definitely going to use in a positive way moving forward, especially now where you're at in your life of graduating high school now, like going on to do the next step, right?
Yeah.
So did you learn all that like in that moment?
Yep. All hit me at that moment.
I was just like, oh, my dad's right. So Brailee shoots a bull, the bull of a lifetime. And I remember walking up on it. And I think this is another time where I turned to the camera and I was like, what did we just do?
I thought it was so alive, so I was scared to walk up to it.
That's definitely something I've always wanted you kids to instill in your kids. Like, you know, we just killed a fantastic elk, but man, like, really got to show that in, almost some gratitude. Not when the camera's rolling, but, you know, that thing lived a long life, and it hopefully spread its seed and, future big bulls can come from it. But, the gratitude in harvesting an animal, because it's a pretty heavy thing shooting an animal.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that? You've killed quite a few things now, critters even since then, of, after you kill an animal, has it ever hit you in the moment of, man, I just took a life?
Yeah, I feel that a lot on my deer hunts because they're so small. I don't feel like I feel it. Obviously I always feel it, but the most when it's smaller animals because Bambi,
Disney. It's ruined a generation of kids.
But also it's so important and eventually these animals are going to die, so if we can use their meat for something good, that's so important.
I think that's a super valid point of, and you understand that as a hunter now. It's hard to, grasp the whole concept of hunting, and I get it. I have to remove myself from being the hunter I've been all my life to, okay, if you never hunted and you just see this from afar, you're like, man, you just killed an animal. That could suck. But as a hunter, you realize, how an animal is going to die in the wild. That is probably the most humane way an animal can ever possibly die. So the other options they have is they get hit by a car, which happens more deer are hit by cars than I think people harvest a year. And then what happens? They go and suffer in the trees for number of days before they die, or they get eaten alive by a predator, a bear, mountain lion, coyote, or they starve to death.
Or freeze to death.
Or freeze
none
to
of
death.
That is.
And so as a hunter, we understand that shooting an animal with a high caliber, gun and having him die within literally 10 seconds is probably the most humane way an animal could possibly ever die. And that's good that you grasp that, because I think that's super important about not only understanding it for yourself, but trying to help other people understand that. And I think that's a big part of this film for me. And I was just reading the comments. I told Logan this morning when we had the idea to shoot this with you is I'm going to go see if there's any questions that people had in the comment section. We posted this almost 4 years ago. Is there any questions people had? And there weren't too many questions. One of the things I wanted to read, one of the takeaways from reading through those was, let's see, I brought it up here, is a comment from a guy named Hitman. So don't know what he does for a living, but his comment was, I myself am not a hunter, but I love this video. I've never done it because in my mind, I have an issue killing something that didn't do anything to me. I felt bad initially that the elk stumbled around before dropping, but you guys thanking the animal for feeding your family honestly took that feeling away and kind of made me want to go try hunting, LOL. Great shot too. Keep up that attitude though, because you may not realize it, but this does have a positive outlook on ethical hunting and can sway people like me. Look forward to more great videos. So as we've got into this career of filming hunting and fishing adventures, we've gone, when I started releasing these videos on YouTube 12 years ago, that wasn't the crowd that was on YouTube. It was very new to show an animal dying on YouTube, when back then it was, family vlogs and cat videos. Is you start feeling this like this heavy responsibility on your shoulder to show, the ethical side of hunting, because a lot of times I think people grow up in a way very different than the way you grew up, very different than the way I grew up, and it comes down to guns, especially. A lot of people that don't have parents that have guns in the house, the only knowledge they really have on guns is the bad things they hear about guns through the media. If it's a school shooting or if it's a murder or drive-by, whatever it is, it's always a negative thing. I think hunting has that outlook, has had that outlook in the media in the past too. Most people, when I started releasing these videos, I didn't understand this, but what a majority of people that didn't hunt think hunting was a group of dudes get together on the weekend, throw a bunch of cases of beer in the truck, drive around in the mountains, drinking all day, shooting every animal they see, and then they go home. And so I really, from an early on of when I started releasing these videos, I realized that a lot of people didn't understand the whole food concept and didn't understand the tag allocation and the management that goes behind all this, because that's just what their opinion was. So I've always felt since then a responsibility of us to show the whole thing and show, hunting how it really is. And I don't know, you've been on numerous videos now, that comment to me is and the other comments that are overwhelming, and which are 90% of the comments, are fathers talking about their their excitement to taking their kids out hunting after watching this video. Like, have you felt responsibility when you're on video of like showing things and having like, thanking the animal, things like that? Like, do you feel responsible?
Yeah, I think it's also like hunters have a really bad outlook because of guns, and I think it's really important to show that guns aren't the problem, it's the people behind them. And so I really like how we show that, like, through the videos, that we're not doing bad with the guns. Like, we're using this to provide for our family, and it's not the guns that are the problem, it's the people, like I said. So yeah, I think that is really important.
That's a great way to look at it, because a lot of things that get negative things that get brought up in the hunting space in like mainstream media is poaching, right? So people go out and shoot an animal without a tag, cut the antlers off, sell the antlers to make money, and people like compare that to what this is, and it's like, well, that's not a hunter, that's a poacher. And so like bad people can do bad things, with a gun in their hand or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think over the years, one thing I've realized and understood is not everyone was fortunate enough to grow up the way we did with a great father, me. I'm just kidding. Grandpa showing me the right way to hunt, the purpose behind hunting, and how it actually feeds our family. Instead of, especially now with the way, you probably don't realize this, but you go to the supermarket to buy a steak nowadays, right now in this economy we live in, it's like $30 to feed our family, just steak.
And you don't know where it comes from.
Don't know where it comes from. It's jacked up with hormones, but literally that bowl sat in our freezer for probably less than 8 months before it was all consumed.
Yeah, we ate it so fast.
But yeah, when you kill a big old bull like that, you're always curious how it's going to taste. You always hear, people, it's too old to eat. Just had to make dog food out of it. But probably, I don't know how old this bull is. I still have a tooth that I pulled out of its head that I want to send in and get it aged. But you always hear these, like, when they kill old bulls. But that's by far the biggest bull elk that anybody in our family's ever killed.
Yeah, it was huge. I also want to say that, like, trophy hunting's fun, like, looking at the antlers, and, like that's fun. But I've always been so amazed by the body. And so, like, I think that's also important to know about hunters. Like, it's not always about the size of the antlers or, like, what it scores or whatever. Like, the body is what amazes me. Same thing with my moose. Like, the body was so big, and I think that's important.
Yeah, you've made comments over the years when I was just like, man, she's an old soul in this hunting game, which she hasn't done a whole lot of, but she understands, like, the food portion of it, obviously, 'cause that's all we really consume is the fish and the red meat that we kill ourselves. But you've made a couple comments through the years like, man, look how big that body is. I'm like, yep, she gets it. She understands it. But if you can have both,
yeah,
large body, giant antlers, like,
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I love shooting the biggest animals, so.
Win-win,
Yep.
But yeah, that was, there's not a ton of videos I go back and watch. There are some videos that we've created over the years that I'm very proud about. If it's just the experience that I was proud about, if it's the camera work that Logan has done or Matt has done, like, there's some videos that we've done that, man, I'll find myself watching like years later, and I watch this one a lot. Obviously, it meant a lot to me having my 15-year-old daughter out there with me. But it's definitely one of the ones I'm most proud of, just because I think it has reached such a large audience, and especially reading through the comments of reading that one I just read from Hitman. Isn't a hitman like somebody that kills somebody for like whatever reason? Anyway, it really shows that, like, we have a big platform that's, a very valuable platform to expose people to the life that, we live, the hunting life, and providing food. And, hunting is a form of management, which is super important too. Yeah. But sweet. Anything else that comes to mind after watching?
People still to this day, 4 years later, are like, oh, you're the one that shot that giant elk. I just think that's so funny. Like, so many people have watched this video, which I think is so cool, because it was such a good, like, not even because the elk is huge, but because, like, the whole way that it worked out was so cool. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Awesome.
Like, you're always wanting to tell or, like, have an experience like that, obviously, for the people involved, but also so you can tell a really cool story through video to hopefully, that gets exposed to a lot of people that maybe wouldn't watch hunting videos. But unfortunately, you can't always you can't plan for things like that to happen. You can only just be out there giving it your best and remembering that everything happens for a reason.
Oh, yeah. Even if your bull gets shot.
Even if your bull gets shot. And you know what? Whoever shot that bull, I don't know to this day. Congrats to them. it really, after, like I said earlier, it's hard in the moment to be like, yeah, things happen for a reason. My bull just got killed. Like and I'm not saying it's now that it led to, you killing an even bigger bull, but it led to you experiencing firsthand that phrase of everything happening for a reason. We got to experience more. We got to go through some more trials and tribulations, because of it. And I truly agree with that statement, and I live by it, that things happen for a reason. It might not be easy to see at the time, but especially 4 years looking back, it's one of the other things I was thinking about when we were talking about doing this hunt story, and this is one of the first ones I wanted to do, is, in the moment of, and you probably didn't feel this way because you cheered because it was your passion, right? The way I was looking at it, and the way I was looking at it right now is, man, like, even though in my eyes I was like, man, this is like her passion, or her cheerleading is taking away from like this experience I want to have in the woods with my daughter. The story that we didn't tell is, you only got to do that thing for such a short amount of time because of the next year you tore your ACL.
Yep.
And that put you out for the season. Well, you got to cheer the whole season. Won a state title.
Yeah, I tore my ACL a week before state, and I kept cheering on it.
But so that was your sophomore year. Mm-hmm. Your junior and senior year, you didn't get a cheer. And so even though in my eyes it was frustrating at the time trying to work around that cheerleading schedule, like, man, anything you're doing that's passionate to you at the time, and if your kids are doing it, like, help them enjoy it, because it doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate for you. It ended earlier than it should have. But, like, now looking back, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it was a frustration for me, but my daughter was doing what I told her to when she was a kid. Like, find something you're passionate about, stick to it, work hard, all those cliches you hear growing up, because just like anything in life, sports, whatever, like, it doesn't last forever.
Yeah. And I got to be passionate about two things, which was cool, like hunting and cheering. I remember at the beginning of the video, since we just watched it, that's why I remember, you said, like, enjoy where you are because time goes by so fast, which is so funny because now we're making podcasts about it 4 years later, and it's so true. Like, high school went by in a snap of fingers. It feels like last year we shot that elk. So
yeah, and that goes like that. That shouldn't stop now because you're out of high school. It even goes by faster. So, and when I always tell you engage, like, enjoy it, because before you know it, you're going to be, responsible for a family. You're going to have to put food on the table. Like, even though you have a lot of responsibility now, it doesn't stop. And time, for whatever reason, the older you get, just goes by faster and faster and faster. Yeah. So that's a great point to bring out.
I've learned that I wish I was still in high school because I don't like being an adult.
Yeah. Now you have even more responsibilities, not just showing up to class and going to cheerleading practice.
Yeah.
You got bills to pay. So, Brailee, I just want to say this real quick because I'm super proud of your decision. Brailee is super smart. She ended up graduating high school a few weeks ago, graduated with a 4.2 GPA, which stuns me and Mom because me and Mom were not your greatest students. But I told Brailee, I was like, and she has opportunities to go to school, do whatever she wants to do. But I was like, if you're not sure what you want to do, like, go and travel. Go do something that will help you grow up and maybe give you, like, a clearer picture of what you want to do, for your job or your career. And so my beautiful daughter is going to be going to Costa Rica here in a couple weeks to work at.
I'm going to be teaching English for 4 months. It came by really fast, and it's going to go by really fast, but I'm so excited.
Yeah, I love that decision. I think that's going to be a huge stepping stone to your future, and what you decide to do with the rest of your life is going, and because sometimes that's what it takes to move away from home and move away from your friends and family, to go be yourself, meet new people, but also to, like, learn who you are as an individual. I think that's important. So I'm super proud on your decision to go to Costa Rica and teach kids English and again, enjoy it. 4 or 5 months isn't a long time, but enjoy every day.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, guys, thanks for watching this week's podcast. I'm going to call it the Hunt Talks. If you guys have a better name for it, let us know in the comments below. And maybe give us some comments on some other hunts you want us to sit down and talk about. Well, one I have on my mind right now is Logan's first elk hunt we did in New Mexico a couple of years ago. But any videos you guys have watched over the years and you wanted to hear maybe a little more in detail of what went on that we didn't show through the video, like, let us know and we'll cover those. We're going to try to do these once a week. I think they're super cool, where we can dive into more detailed experiences we have during the hunt. And let us know. But thanks for watching, guys. And always, we appreciate you guys' support.